And thank you for reminding me that I'm officially old since 2 weeks. Yeah, thank you. It's great. I think the networks like this will play an extremely important role, as we'll explain, perhaps even more important than the official networks that we have or official institutions. I was invited as a program manager of the recognition rewards at the University of the Netherlands. At the moment, I'm assigned from my university to the University of the Netherlands. Today, I'm not going to present the opinion of the program. There's also no opinion of the program, but actually quite some perhaps personal take of what I see is happening from pretty top level and over the scale of maybe 30 to 60 years. So bear with me. I have to explain a bit of why I'm taking this. I have used this in my courses. I have designed a course on open science for the master's students, and that's also the slides sometimes I use to explain to them what is the change and why actually we are experiencing the programs like recognition rewards, but across the world. In China, I was telling earlier, programs like this are happening. So I have to explain a little bit on that. I've heard that we can have Q&A after the 30 minutes, so bear with me, but note down your questions. I would be very glad to answer that. And some parts, I'm going to talk about belief systems, and talking about belief systems sometimes actually touches people in the heart. It is nothing personal at all. I'm talking about belief systems which are prevalent. It's about the stories in the system. And I think it's also very important if you all in the middle of the transition to understand also the stories we tell ourselves change. I'm 4 days a week at University of the Netherlands working on this program. 1 day a week still at the Climate Research Institute, Climate Initiative of the Netherlands, KIN. And in the past 4 years, which I helped setting up it, I also learned a lot about the transition, specifically the drift X-curve theory that I will show you. It's not a theory, it's like a model for visualization. And I have seen, and I've written about it, a lot of similarities between the transition in academia that we want and the sustainability transition. And sometimes I'm going to use these models. Academia is, of course, one part of the connection with the sustainable world that we want to make. But there are many system transition similarities which perhaps even are more familiar in terms of the, for example, greening industries than in terms of what we have achieved so far in academia. Yeah, so why do we need to change the academic recognition and reward system? And this is a slide I received when I entered the job. So this was the opinion. It is still the opinion of the program. The founders of the program, this is the reason. We reward in our system something which is a bit out of line from what we really aim for, at least as an institution. Or the institution and recognition rewards program is a directive, it's a managerial program from top. It is actually with a big alliance, but it has been gone so far in the University of the Netherlands as a national program because there is a lot of managerial support for it from the beginning and is still even perhaps stronger than 5 years ago. But the world around us is also not stopping, and I would even argue that this has been a response to the change outside the academia or outside the control of the managers, or what we can aim for. It's because actually a modern, trustworthy academic system requires many different things that we are familiar with in our old traditions. And many of these reasons become famous because of like the scandals we have, reproducibility, which was the reason for actually start of this network, reproducibility crisis in social sciences, in medical sciences, in physics, my field, no field has been spared. So this demands, if you have a complex system, complex problems to solve, also with a complex system which is already running, with people who have expectations, you need to change your system, the way the system is interconnected, so you can actually solve these problems. And this has changed much faster than the internal reward system have changed. And that's what I would like to talk. And here I will use these visualization tools for the transition of from one system to the other. The original paper, 2019, was presented, started the program 2020. It was called the Room for Everyone Talent. And it is a very, very nice document because I think it's actually quite thorough. It has 5 pillars. I read them: diversifying and vitalizing career paths, achieving balance between individuals and the collective, stimulating open science, focusing on quality, and stimulating academic leadership. In my reading, actually, number 1 or 2 are really procedural changes, and the other 3, these are like the structural changes that you need for the other 2 to happen. Somehow, in the time that we had, maybe because of how our culture is set up or how our university is set up, number 1, diversifying career paths, became really 80% of the activities connected to it. Many people said, well, this is about everybody getting promotion as soon as possible, while the others a bit went to the background. Open science had its other ways, other networks to do it. Academic leadership became something that universities internalized. So it became as a reputation that the recognition rewards program is about, having diversification of career paths. And actually, frankly, it has been worked out very well. In most of the universities, almost all universities now, we have pretty well-defined accents, paths that people can diversify. It has worked. And this is perhaps a good thing, I would say. If you have a system which is complex and they only take part and just make it bigger and bigger, at some point it will actually make friction with the rest of the system. So I personally see that the second pillar should get much more attention, and that's the balance between individual and the collective. So in this talk specifically, I would like to actually emphasize on the room as the space, the university that we have, instead of the one. Just coming from the fact that if you do not have a viable, financially thriving or stable university, you can also not just give space to everyone to do whatever they want. A system under stress will also transfer this stress to the people. So we all have to collectively still keep responsibility for the balance in our institution. So I'm going to look at the whole system. That's what I would like to do. And personally, I also have a lot of tendency to focus a lot on this balance. I would like to see how we can procedurally put more emphasis on this balance. It has been translated in the documents. Some universities, I think this university is one of the best examples, have even translated into practice. You might have heard of strategic personnel planning. Not everybody attributes that to the recognition rewards program, but this is one part of the recognition rewards program. And the universities who manage in some parts to do the SPP somehow systematically, SPP, they have actually really seen some of the effects of it, and they also seen where it actually touches on people's nerve. Now, this is all I want to say, that I'm actually coming from this angle of the position paper. So if you have discussions about what about the diversity of talents, we can have it at the Q&A. I'm not going to focus on that a lot. There is a transition happening, Yuri said, and I would like to name it like this. And the transition is going from this individualistic, egocentric, that's the name I give to it, way of doing science, which we had it in the maybe past few hundred years, towards something new. Why I say egocentric is not necessarily pejorative, it's not a negative thing. The idea was that if you have really top scientists and then give them all the equipment, in Germany they call them, trust them, they call them Max-Planck directors, but they really have these authority and then also bring them on the ladder and then make them so trustable, but also very carefully selected, they will keep the integrity of science for you, because it's also very costly for them to lose it. So this has been very important for integrity of science. At the same time, it's also this very good story that you can tell to the outside. I mean, if you now go nowadays and ask kids in school to draw how science looks like, how university looks like, they will draw individual scientists. In the lab coats, still some more man, it's changing. But this is a story we have told ourselves, that science is a personal endeavor, finding the truth and also protecting it, telling it to the society. It has been from Archimedes, came out of the bath, shouting of found, all the way to the past century, the ways we were doing this exploration of the truth. And even recently, right, there was this article 2 years ago that, how much resources does it take to make an AI scientist? But still, even AI system has been seen as this individual fish who is actually exploring. You just use AI tools instead of that. The cost of it was 12 euro per paper, something like that, if I remember. So this is the very, very strong story. And it has been studied. I really like the system of the study of Bruno Latour on this, that actually the credits that comes with it of being this status man is very important. This is actually what most scientists are after. They would like to have the credit to keep it for themselves so that they can actually work more. They stay inside the system. So they go through this cycle of getting money, resources, collecting evidence, data, then bringing arguments, publishing it, and that's why they say publish or perish. And then your publications are your currency. You get more credit for it, and you go around the cycle. As much as I like this model, it has been written in 1980 or so, and it has been also used even recently by, for example, Frank Miedema, to analyze what is wrong with the credit system, why it has stopped working for our current problems. There have been a lot of problems involved in it. Why scandals happen, for example, is that there is a lot of competition, there is a lot of limitations. Team science is not in the system, for example. There is no reward for diversity, because if you want to be the best, it's better actually you choose your niche very well, because you cannot be best of everything. And these are not compatible with how, without any directives, the science has moved. So the credit system on the individual basis is not working. That we know. We can also collect evidence for it. Question is, what is a replacement? And here is the replacement I would like to propose. It's, again, not my model, but I think this is something that I see more and more happening, just, again, based on anecdotes and evidences of projects that you have. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if there was a big discovery, you know about, for example, who was this? Yeah, it was Krieg who did the DNA structure, or was this and that Nobel Prize winner. But it has moved. Now you know who did protein folding. It was AlphaFold. It is an institution. It is a company behind it. There are more and more these big collaborations, big endeavors are actually doing the most serious discoveries and not the individuals behind them. And this is one mark of the transition. I would like to propose a model here. It's not my model, but I would say this is the way we are going towards. And it has a different architecture, different topology than going around in a circle. And that's the very essential difference in the model. It is a network of a lot of micro contributions which are tangled with each other. So people are parts of many projects. There is no discipline. People are part of the project. They do micro contributions. It can be article, but it can be also data sets, some project. They put it in this cloud, and they wait for this to be used by the others. They sometimes invoke the use. Sometimes they use it themselves. Sometimes it takes 10 years for somebody to use it. But then over time, because we have this clear visibility of the whole network, we will see who has been a very important node in this network. One of these projects is getting the most traction, because everything is connected. There is no single discipline. You can actually see it by some of the data. For example, if you look at the citations, collaborations that people have together, and this is, for example, a model is pretty old. I think nowadays it's much more entangled. You don't discover disciplines anymore. It's not that physicists collaborate with physicists. If that was like that, you would have seen, very blobs, and they are connected with maybe a few lines, but everything is connected with each other. The same is with the academic career, right? People come, go from outside to inside, from different jobs. They come back to the university. There is more and more cross-disciplinary work, multidisciplinary work. They are actually increasing more than the monodisciplinary publications. Again, disciplines is what you need if you want to build a name for yourself. And if you have no disciplines, it would be very difficult to be a star of every discipline. That's another reason. And just the publications, the number of publications is exploding. So you cannot just take them out of everybody's individual circle. And these are all data from my class, which I presented 2 years ago. So it's quite actually old data. These are all pre-AI things. I think the explosion of the publication is now really through the roof. I heard 10 million now some months ago. So now comes the transition. And I would like to introduce this visualization tool, which I have been developed in Rotterdam by Dirk Loorbach and Jan Rothmans. Perhaps you know him from the TV. He studied transitions in the society. And he said, you know, when you have this super big transition, the transition as a fundamental level of the topology of the system, you have these two different sort of curves which are going. On the brown curve is about the old system, which is really trying to keep itself. We're still talking about a multi-billion endeavor. In the Netherlands, it's maybe 3.5 billion euros. These people are not going away, you know, in a year or so. They would like to keep the system. So you will have a path which very slowly, because of external and perhaps internal conflict and external pressure, will eventually dephase. And you have these new paths showing up, the new future system showing up first as very small experiments here and there, and then the successful ones, they accelerate and they consolidate themselves. Eventually, in the phase that these two are somehow equal in size, you will get chaos. You don't know, am I part of the before and the part of the after? Everybody is unhappy for some reason, except for the people who have maybe a lot of resources or the people who have a lot of hope, which is a good thing. But this is the model. And again, dare I say that this is what we think, I think is happening, that we are actually in this transition from this egocentric way of presenting science as something that individuals keep integral and keep progressing into something which is a cloud. A lot of people contribute, but there is no, you know, very strong nodes. We say these are the protectors of the science. And this requires really different system of understanding networks, understanding credit, understanding collaboration, understanding also optimization of how am I going to invest on part of this network, which actually gives the best value for the bank, for the investment. Now, it gives you some fun. For example, I also like to give this. You have heard all about the ivory tower. I think before coming to DEA, when I joined the Utrecht Academy, we had a meeting with Frits van Ostrom, which was the former head of the KNV, and he presented this book to us almost 10 years ago. He says, you know, networks are very important. It's a pretty boring book about Illuminati and other Freemasons and stuff like that, but it's a very nice title. And it's all about these, you know, square and tower. All over time, we had the people who were in these towers, and they could sort of manage the society. They thought they can do it. And the people who were in the market having this exchange of ideas in the square market. And this have been in the story. And I also somehow see some resemblance. So we are actually going from the tower to the square. And if the ivory tower is the name of the past, we have now the Academy Square, which is the name of the blog I write. And it's not accidental. Anyway, so the X-curve actually gives quite some insight. I really like it. And it has helped me a lot also to make sense of, for example, why sustainability transition is so slow, etc. Stuff like the first thing is that it has some certain patterns which repeat in different transitions. The fact that the people who are in the system, they understand the external pressure. They would like to respond with it. And the response, first of all, is optimization. And there is something special about optimization. The very famous example of this optimization is carbon compensation. You know, you say, well, people, we don't want to people stop flying or so, but let them just compensate. You know, they pay slightly more money, and then it eventually we use it for good, but hopefully it will turn into something that we can actually use over time. People will fly less. Sometimes optimization works, sometimes doesn't work, because at the end it wants to keep the old system, which is going against the stream. For example, we already know that like this carbon compensation, it actually works worse, right? It makes people fly more because they say, well, I'm going to compensate anyway, so I'm going to really enjoy my vacation. So the optimization, and that causes some internal conflicts. So even inside the people who are really like-minded and think we are all working for the better system, but some people say, well, you're doing optimization and not you're doing experimentation or working on a new system. I would like to give an example which might, yeah, I will give it anyway. So the narrative CV. This is like one of the big achievements that we say. If you have a narrative CV on the other path, it is optimization, you know, just giving a different format to the individuals to gain their, you know, privileges or gain things, it will be just optimization of the whole system. If you use narrative CV as a way of making new stories possible, how the consortia have achieved things that they could not do individually, how the collective have been more than the past, what they have set as a system which they can actually thrive outside their system, then it would be a new way, and it cannot be done in a list of publications. That would be something of experimentation. So the tools can be on both paths, and it is upon us to really sort of choose the right path. It's very difficult. On a weekly basis, I have, dialogues with myself. Am I doing optimization, or am I actually helping the system? This is difficult. There is one way of doing that. It's also, again, something from the theory is that if you really want to say if you are on the top path or the bottom one, don't look at what's happening now, because this thing can happen 60 years. So you don't know about 1 year to the other. Look at the very far future. If you have a vision of what is going to be in 50 years, the science we have, ask yourself, does this thing, the personal granting or whatever, has a space in the science of 50 years from now? And if the answer is no, probably you accept it because just it's part of the protocol, but you better not waste a lot of time on optimizing it. And then comes the other steps like destabilization, chaos. Eventually, the new system will become stronger and the old system may break down. Assuming that we know what is new, what is old. We don't know. Another thing of this X-curve theory is that it's a sense-making tool. It's about observation of what is happening, and it's not about steering and controlling. You cannot say, this is what we have to do, because this is the same way of saying, I'm the boss of the world, which I'm not. You can also look at the new examples. And this is also sometimes very insightful and also tells you what you really have to achieve for, what you really have to aim for. And you can actually give yourself a lot of discount, say, if we achieve this 10% improvement here, we have done a good job. If you look at the experimentation, then you will see that maybe what effort that you have been made have just taken you, a small centimeter forward and not a big step. And for me, one of these experimentations, for example, and this is the one that also gives me the time scale of the transition, is Wikipedia. 30 years ago, Wikipedia came with a completely new system of, evaluating good contributions, which was very different from like Britannica, which have this super author, world famous author has to write it, and then there's council has to read it. It was very slow. It took 4 months for a new entry to add the Wikipedia. Britannica, for example, came totally with a new system of credits based on digital networks, which allowed it. And then a lot of very creative, very motivated people starting actually doing Wikipedia articles, and became in almost 10, 15 years, multilingual, 100 times bigger than the Britannica, and it has become, a real tool in the knowledge preservation. Again, people denied it. I still remember, 5 minutes, it's a good smile. I still remember people say, teachers saying that, no, you have never used Wikipedia as a source because it's not so. I think nowadays they don't say that, but they say it about AI. So this is another thing to watch out. Okay, what I'm saying is that the perspective matters. So if you actually look from the future and walk back, then maybe you also make different priorities in your policies. And I take one example, which is a very good example from this university, which we are in the building, and that's using these portfolios as a group. What we need as a group for our departments is a combination of different scales, and how we are going to translate this to the individual focus of the careers of individuals. And somehow it has written, you have to have this diversity. From the individual perspective, you can look at, well, what are the things I can do? I would really like to do teaching, or I really like to do impact, so I really put all my effort on that aspect, so I develop there. And the system has promised me there will be always room. This is not what the system promises. Within the balance, within the strategy, you might grow, but it's not a guarantee. So if you change the perspective and the unit, say, I want a balanced unit. I'm going to look as a unit what is missing my system. Even then, the individual can also make different choices. It's not only about your personal preferences, but it's also about the opportunities which are in the system for you. So for the few, actually, I fixed it, you could have just switched these first two and it would have been a different story. Or it is, and still can be. But that would be the way I would like to read it. Does it tell anything about the people who have to make decisions now for the next year? I think it does. This is how I teach my students and also personally choose projects. I guess from individual, if you accept that eventually you will be part of a network, you will never be the star because the stars are fainting or the stardom is out of fashion, then you understand that the project, the connection is much more important. The project is the building block of the network. So you pay much more attention to the interactions you have. You also pay much more attention to the dynamic of the system. Again, translating to a simple decision, instead of choosing for a lab which has a Nobel Prize winner and at the head, 400 people in the lab and fighting over resources with each other, you will choose for a successful project of the future for a lab which has good dynamics in it. And 10 years ago, this would have been crazy. If you had the possibility for the fame and the rich, just choose for it. But I think this would be, at this point of time, a bad decision for any young researcher. And also inside the units, it's very important to pay attention that your purpose of having a unit is to have a good work culture. So there are very good sort of examples of how you can actually preserve that. Why I say that? It's actually one of the very well-proven facts of social Darwinism, social evolution, is that if you look inside a group which are competitive, yes, being selfish actually brings you in. And this is the old system. You would like to be selfish. But if you look among the groups, and this has been done with bacteria, with animals, with all species, etc., then the groups which are more collaborating inside, over time will win over the groups which are very competitive inside. So again, if you believe that the future is network, you would have chosen for an altruistic group, a group of good connectivity and good collaboration, even though if there are some big egos missing in that group, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And as for the institution, and this is, I guess, for the recognition reward program work to set examples, is that we can look a lot about the career path and what people have options and what are the discussions, what are the Benoeming-commissies, what are these conversations, but they're all individuals. And has been done correctly. Let's keep what we have done. But I would say as an institution, we should introduce new things which they exist for Albert Heijn, but they don't exist for university, funny enough. You look into the team dynamics, how this information is circulating in the team. Is this a team that actually encourages speaking up or not? And these are the things that the management theory or management practice have actually created. This is from a book of Lencioni. And then you can look at it and see if there is a good functioning team or a bad functioning team. So if you go this way, it's a good functioning team. If you go that way, it's a bad functioning team. And it has nothing to do with the characters of the individuals. Maybe the leaders of the team, but it's really about the dynamic of it. So some people can be extremely good in one team because the team has a good sphere and extremely bad functioning in another team. So look at the teams, and this is something I hope that we can develop for studying at the team level how our universities function. Yeah, and maybe I put this slide for a moment. You can ask now yourself, maybe you even don't agree with my analysis, but you can ask yourself, which branch am I putting much more my efforts on? That would be nice to think about when you're brushing your teeth tonight. And, well, come to the Recognition Reward Forum, the error view, and bringing your opinions and ideas, and let's discuss. Thank you very much.